Hello, I'm Jennifer Vatsa, your favorite poison path herbalist and witchy poo. I am going to talk to you today about oleander because I just got home from my daily run to the post office to a text message from my mother asking me, hey, what do you know about oleander? The My Pillow guy is touting it as a treatment or preventative for COVID. I was like, well, first of all, it's highly toxic. So we're going to talk about oleander. And as I posted on my personal Facebook about it, people are like, oh, so that's why everyone's suddenly talking about oleander today. And yeah, so please don't eat, rub, do anything with oleander. I work with poisonous plants all the time, and there are very specific ways that you can work with poison medicine in therapeutic methodologies. But unless you're an experienced herbalist and are experienced with working with these toxic plants, I highly recommend please don't do it. And if someone's touting, that they have some sort of, safe oleander thing, I would highly question it because I work within the poison path. I know a lot of other poison path people who create poison medicine products, and I don't think I've ever seen anything created with oleander at this point in time. That tells you something. So oleander is a small ornamental shrub. They're usually red. They're very beautiful. They're usually red, pink, and have yellow, white flowers. They're also very toxic to animals and wildlife as well as humans. And typically they grow in tropical and subtropical climates, but, it depends on where you're at, and they are native to the Mediterranean region. I'm going to reference a few of my go-to materials plus my own notes from doing research on this, as well as I'm going to update this on my website so I can link it in the description below. So on the witchy side of things, oleander, like a lot of poison plants, is a Saturnian herb. And it can be used in love spells, but it would be something like if you were making a spell jar or something, because again, it's highly toxic. So one of the things that makes oleander really hard to work with is that the sap and leaves are very caustic and can cause contact dermatitis. So you're going to get really bad skin rashes and abrasions and things from that. And you don't want to ingest it for that reason as well, because imagine that inside you. So there's a lot of different phytochemicals in any plant, whether you're talking about lavender, oleander, anything. But one of the compounds is called oleandrin, and this is a cardiac glycoside. And the key thing to think about here is these are chemicals. Chemicals interact with other chemicals and things like medications. So this oleandrin and oleander in general can interact with antibiotics. If you're on the cardiac medication digoxin, which is actually derived from foxglove flowers and the plant material, quinine stimulant laxatives, water pills, and calcium supplements. Now, it doesn't take a lot of research to realize that this is not something you want to be messing with. And just going out and, trying to figure this out and, on your own and stuff. I mean, I've never worked with oleander just because I have no reason to. And some of the ways that oleander has been used therapeutically, and, you would want to have someone who's very well trained and understands how to use these compounds and break it down to minimize, the toxicity and whatnot. Now, despite the fact that the sap can cause skin irritations and things like that, it's sometimes used in products that can be applied to the skin to treat various skin problems, and such as warts and things like that. And medicinally, it's interesting that it can be used for heart conditions, but that's because it contains the cardiac glycosides. Now, what that means, and the same thing with like foxglove that digoxin comes from, is, if you have, like, if I took digoxin and I don't have heart trouble, it could kill me. But if you have heart trouble and that the digoxin can regulate your heart and, be used in a therapeutic way that's safe. So it's going to depend on your physiology and your overall, health and things like that. I mean, it's Oleander is said to have been used for everything from epilepsy. There's been some study on using it for cancer treatments, and nothing has been yielded from that. It's been said to have been used for painful menstrual periods, leprosy, because that's common, and other things of that nature. And another thing to consider with a lot of these poison plants are abortifacient. So if you are pregnant, it could cause you to have a miscarriage. And things that are often abortifacient, so even if you are no longer pregnant, if you're trying to get pregnant or you are nursing, it could be toxic to the child as well in that case. So again, stay away from Oleander. Interestingly enough, it is used as a antidote for serpent venom. So it's interesting because I know there's other toxic plants too, that some of their compounds are used to counteract other types of poisoning. So that's something, again, plants are curious little creatures sometimes. So some of the fun side effects of cardiac glycosides that are in Oleander, such as oleandrin, are that symptoms of the toxicity, while death is rare, but it can happen, especially if there's like other things going on with your physiology. So the signs of poisoning include such fun things as abdominal pain, excessive salivation, vomiting, diarrhea that may contain blood. So bloody stool. That sounds fun. It may cause tachycardia, or any kind of irregular heartbeat. So your pulse might be going up and down. You're gonna, you might start to look, get kind of pale because it's affecting your circulation, and you're gonna start feeling cold. That cold kind of feeling you get in your limbs and your extremities and things like that. Can cause drowsiness, tremors, seizure, and even a coma. So again, don't eat and, roll in your oleander. Don't. So the common treatments for oleander poisoning, especially if it's ingested, is to get it out of your system, which they use like charcoal for, so to produce the vomiting and whatnot, to get it out of to absorb the toxins and purge them out of you. So, but again, that's going to have to be done in an emergency room under close medical observation. And it's important to note that all parts of the plant are toxic. So the flowers are toxic, the roots, the leaves, the stems, the branches, everything is toxic. Because some plants, and the toxicity might vary from different areas. In some, like belladonna, I think like the roots are slightly more potent than, say, the leaves. The berries are way more potent than the flowers and things like that. So, it's going to vary a little bit in that sense. And so, interestingly enough, most of the books I have that reference, herbalist books that I have that reference oleander, are books on toxic plants or psychoactive plants, things of that nature. So this isn't going to be in your little, make your own herbalist concoction kind of thing. So a couple of books I've referenced. This was one. This is actually, it's more of a, just a little, I wouldn't call it a scientific book, but it's called Wicked Plants. It was I enjoyed it. It's just a little sort of general synopsis. It's called The Weed That Killed Lincoln's Mother and Other Botanical Atrocities by Amy Stewart. Very good book, but if you just want a little bit of knowledge on something, that's that. Another book is Plants That Kill: A Natural History of the World's Most Poisonous Plants by Elizabeth Doncy and Sonny Larsson. And one of the things that, unfortunately, oleander seeds in particular have been used for in parts of Southeast Asia is they've been crushed up and used. It's unaffectionately referred to as the suicide tree in that area because it is native there and people do use it to commit suicide. So referencing my very heavy, there we go, my Encyclopedia of Psychoactive Plants, just to see what they have to say about oleander. And historically, in ancient Greece, I believe, or ancient times in general, it was used in honeys for its psychoactive effects. So, in other words, it was kind of used to get you high in ancient times. But what they point out is that the oleandrin in oleander is, again, and this is the phrase we're using a lot, is cardiac glycosides. And what those can do is paralyze the heart. You don't want that. Contain other alkaloids and other compounds and things of that nature. So, as I've quickly referenced my go-to sources on various poison plants, even just regular plants and stuff for herbalism, just want to recap. Oleander really isn't used for its psychoactive benefits, so you're not going to really see it in flying ointments or things of that nature. It doesn't seem to be used, maybe homeopathically, because they do some strange stuff. I don't know a lot about homeopathy, but that's a whole different sort of thing of its own. It's toxic. All parts of the plant are toxic. And if you don't know what you're doing, you could die or be seriously injured. And that's no fun because cardiac glycosides paralyze the heart. And if the heart is paralyzed, you die. So, as your friendly poison path herbalist, I recommend staying away from oleander. There might be some people that know how to work with it safely. I wouldn't consider myself one of them, and I wouldn't recommend bucking around in your yard and finding out, because that's going to end up with you in the hospital. So please don't eat, smoke, rub yourself, make things with oleander, please. And its scientific name is Nerium oleander, I believe. And there are different types of, Nerium oleander. There are different types, there are different species of oleander, so that might vary a little bit. But again, so don't forget to click like and subscribe. And thank you to my Patreon supporters. I love you all.